Welcome to the Business Spotlight, where today the spotlight is shining on Kostas Zarifis from Rogue Sun. Hello, Kostas.
Hi.
Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight. To start off with, tell our viewers a little bit more about you and the business, please.
Yeah, my name is Kostas, as you said. I run Rogue Sun, which is a Guildford-based video games development company. My background is in engineering, so I've got a bachelor's in computer science from the University of Athens. So I'm Greek originally, so I migrated to the UK back in 2006, and it was to do a master's in computer science again, but specializing in video games development, games programming. And then I got my first job here in Guildford again at Lionhead Studios, which is sort of historic, I guess, video games development company. And then in 2011, I left that to start my own video games development business, which wasn't Rogue Sun. It was a different one. But yeah, since then, it's been a journey in entrepreneurship, I guess.
Oh, which we'll delve into a second. Now,
sure
first question, was running a business or owning a business something you had always wanted to do, or did that just happen accidentally?
I suppose, yes, it's probably the short answer to that. Kind of growing up, I was always, that type of person, sort of shoehorning myself into those kind of leadership positions, whether it was starting a band in high school or, running the school, students union or something like that. And yeah, just kind of always had that sort of itch for, I guess, organizing things. You see those people where they just can't help when they see sort of inefficiencies and kind of go, I see that, but I feel like it could be done better if we did this and that. And yeah, so also quite creative, I guess, as well. So even though, like I said, my formal education is in engineering, I guess playing games growing up and realizing, actually, I quite like this. I quite like to do this as a profession. I always like the idea of, being able to kind of design my own games and come up with my own ideas. So, putting these two things together kind of pointed to one path of eventually running a video games development business. I did not think it would be affecting my second job, because like I say, I worked at Lionhead for 5 years, and then started my own business right after that. So that was a bit unexpected and not really planned. But yeah, I guess it was kind of, in some ways, it was good to take a shortcut in some ways to that final destination.
So did anything happen for you to then all of a sudden go, now I'm making that leap, or was that quite natural for you?
Yeah, no, 100%. So during my last year at Lionhead, I basically came up with a concept for a video game that I was started developing in my spare time. Yeah, so it was kind of a consolidation of lots of different factors, I guess. So that was one. Then I kind of also started to feel like, that journey had sort of come full circle at Lionhead, even though, I mean, it kind of gave me all the tools in my arsenal, but it sort of felt like the growth was starting, kind of starting to get sort of diminishing returns. So on the one hand, there was a feeling of I could do with moving on to something new. On the other hand, I also had, my own thing where I was very passionate about and kind of wanted to see if I could, make it happen. So yeah, one day I woke up and I was like, I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's go for it.
Okay. So talk me through what you as a business are really good at.
So Rogue Sun, we sort of specialize, I guess. So we just launched our first big game, or I should say relaunched, because we launched it as an early access game, which I guess some of your viewers might already know this, but for those who don't know, it's basically almost like a preview. So it's like an MVP, like a minimum viable product that you can launch on certain platforms for some players to download, and then give you feedback, and then you can sort of I guess iterate on it with the community's feedback and also grow a community. So we did that with this game that's called Tin Hearts back in 2019, and it was only back then, it was only a VR game, but back in May of this year we launched it on all the platforms, and it's the full game as well. It's not an early access version. And this game is a puzzle narrative game, so lots of puzzle solving, lots of storytelling. So yeah, I'd say, and it's very, very kind of character driven experience. So I'd say that's kind of our expertise and specialization is sort of character driven, story driven, memorable kind of experiences.
Is that different than what other game businesses are creating in the current market? I have to admit, it's a world I don't know very well.
Sure. Yeah, it's a vast landscape at the moment. Again, I guess because of a consolidation of lots of different factors, the gaming demographic has grown exponentially over the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years. Obviously, games being so readily available on phones has massively contributed to that. So, I guess going 20 years back, 25 years back, a gamer you'd think would be, I don't know, 10 to 16-year-old boy, usually, playing games on some console in their bedroom or their living room or whatever. These days, it's like a lot of our demographic. For example, I was reading on our forums, there's a 70-year-old retired, I don't know their gender, but they were saying, oh, I love your game, and I love puzzle solving. And so you have everyone from young girls to like I say, older people playing games. The genres are so vast, in terms of yes, you have kind of storytelling based games like ours, where there's a plot and you follow these characters, kind of similar to a movie, I guess, or a series. There's completely non-story based games where it's about some activities. There's like management simulation games where you simulate the experience of running your own business, for example, or being the mayor of a town, and the sports games, there's driving games. So yeah, it's a very the demographic has grown massively, and therefore, and also part of that, the offerings are very varied as well.
Which I can imagine makes it really hard for you, because the conversation I often have with business owners is the more widespread you try to go in terms of marketing, the more complicated it is, because the more people you try to reach, almost the more watered down you make your conversation. So I would imagine it's the same for you. At some stage, you have to just pick a particular either demographic or interest and then just run with that. Is that how you start?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it's a very incisive observation, and it's actually very timely for us as well, because we're very much focused now on kind of the marketing side of things, having now completed a product, and obviously, like I say, we launched it 6 weeks ago. Marketing has been something that we've been so we have a publisher, so we've been working alongside our publisher on the marketing and PR side of things. And again, for anyone in your audience who is not aware, the way it works in video games, I guess, is quite similar to, I don't know, music or book literature, where You might self-publish something, you might fund it all yourself, and then you get to keep all the money as well, which is nice.
Nice.
Or you might not have the funding, depending on how ambitious I guess it is the product.
Yeah.
The product you're trying to make is. So you might make a deal with a video games publisher who will provide anything from all of the funding to part of the funding to develop the game. Usually a lot of the services around QA, so testing, localization, and then usually a lot of the marketing budget and also the marketing kind of strategy. So because, like we're saying, it's such a saturated space right now. Usually, especially for smaller developers like ourselves, who don't necessarily have the marketing dollars to push through the noise, what makes more sense is to try and find kind of a niche, and then sort of ultra kind of laser focus the messaging to that demographic. Obviously, you want to make sure that it's big enough so that you have a sustainable, profitable business and timeline with your product. And in that sense, it's really no different to any product, video games. But yeah, as you said, it probably, as a smaller developer for sure, it probably makes sense to kind of find a niche, make sure it's big enough, and then try to really, as with any product, really solve that audience's particular problem. Find what makes you different, so that they will want to come to you.
Nice to see that indeed is exactly the same thinking pattern that what businesses would go through for their kind of marketing. So talk me through, you've been in business since 2011 in an industry that's rapidly changing, as we've already talked about so far. What have been some of the challenges that you've had as a business owner?
So I would say, okay, I can talk about myself personally, and I can talk about myself as the representative of the business. So for me personally, starting off, like I said, my formal background was in programming, engineering. Like I said at the start, yes, I kind of knew that hopefully maybe one day I'd be kind of running my own business, but I had none of that formal background. So going into that was very much kind of a, diving in the deep end, sort of, rude awakening of all the kind of things that, I guess I'd see people at Lionhead, for example, kind of being in charge of. And again, Lionhead, I didn't mention, was effectively a subsidiary, so it was owned by Microsoft. So they were effectively first-party Microsoft game studio, and it was a company of anywhere between 180 and 250 people. So the infrastructure was kind of vast, and you don't fully realize, I guess, as a small cog in such a machine, you don't kind of fully realize what goes into making sure that machine is running properly. So yeah, and any business, regardless of scale, will need those mechanisms, will need that infrastructure to function properly. Yes, of course, yeah, the economies of scale are completely different for a business of 15 people, which is what we are at the moment, to 250 people. But that kind of shape, that structure is still kind of there. So having to learn all of that sort of as I was kind of trying to develop the product at the same time was certainly a very interesting challenge. But
what were you, sorry, I know I'm interrupting, but I don't want to lose that train of thought. What were your go-to places to go and learn? Because I often talk about this around, you are great as a developer, but when do you take the time out to learn how to become a business owner? Which is exactly what you're saying. What were your go-to places for learning?
Yeah, and back then, if I'm being completely honest, it was very different in terms of access to that knowledge, that information. And I guess, because of it was different, but also coming from kind of that generation, I was very, very used to the sort of more direct approach of let's go out and ask people, you know, have the face to face, you know, buy someone a drink and, you know,
Yep.
invite, you know, and have those conversations. And the nice thing about Guildford and Lionhead, whose founder Peter Molyneux was kind of a well-known sort of persona in the local area. So he founded a company called Bullfrog before Lionhead. But because of these companies, what's happened in the Guildford area is that there's a whole bunch of it's a bit of a video games development hub. There's a whole bunch of studios and founders and people that will be very happy to, you know, you buy them a drink and, you know, or coffee, and they'll sit with you and they'll talk you through all the things and the, you know, the issues and the problems that they've had to solve. So I had a lot of support from my peers back in those early days. Some of them, you know, partway through that journey, some of them in the later stages, some of them also just kind of starting like myself, and of course kind of being very ready and open to kind of, you know, exchange information.
Nice.
So yeah, so that was very nice, and again, another reason why still very much kind of I guess in love with the scene here in the area, and, you know, what we still have our business here, and yeah, it's something that I've benefited from, and like we're saying before we started the call, very much kind of want to give back as well, because definitely feel indebted.
Yeah.
And then yeah, there's you complement that with, you know, online information online. I would have loved to have done kind of in retrospect like a formal degree or something like that. I think, you know, that would have been very beneficial. I think there's an element of like optimism as well and naivety, which is very helpful. Very helpful. I think
I'm glad you said that word, because I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think if you were fully aware, anyone like that, if they were fully aware of the scope of the problem, of the mountain that they're about to climb and overcome, they probably wouldn't go on that journey.
Correct.
So I think, you know, having that optimism and naivety is a great combination, and I think behind any of these people that, you know, in business that we see and admire, I think everyone had an element of that to a degree. So it's great. It's a great thing.
It is great. Yeah, sometimes being a little bit oblivious is not bad. I would agree with that. So that was you as a business owner, but you also said as a representative of the business. So what have been some of the challenges that you've seen through the business?
So with the business, and again, we're seeing a bit of this now, again, because of so during the pandemic, the games market saw a massive boom, and there's now, because people were at home, and, you know, we were I was feeling quite bad, you know, talking to other business owners during that time, and, you know, they would describe, you know, people in hospitality, you know, those kinds of sectors, they would describe their problems to me, and then, you know, and they go, so how, you know, how are things for you? And I was feeling quite bad because, you know, I wasn't sure what to say. We were seeing, you know, the games sector was seeing a massive boom because people were staying at home and not much to do, you know, watch TV, play games, was a popular choice. But we are now seeing kind of a correction, you know, it's the industry kind of self-correcting. So there does seem to be, and I guess, you know, obviously with the global crises that are taking place, affecting everything. So we're now seeing a bit of a shrinkage of the market. So yeah, access to finance is a constant kind of issue. I mentioned earlier, you know, we have a publisher now who help with that, and there's always kind of there's a lot, you know, there's a lot to gain from such deals, but also, you know, things to lose around control, around, you know, future revenues. But, you know, of course, you know, doing deals is part of running a business. But yeah, very much combined with the, I guess, the naivety and the greenness that we mentioned. Yeah, that was also kind of an issue during the early days. The project I mentioned that I was kind of developing in my spare time never really managed to take off. So, because of combination of, it was being perceived as very appealing, from to the various publishers again and platform holders that were pitching at the time. But again, in retrospect, I would be approaching the pitching very differently, with the experience that I have now, I guess, from a pure kind of product and sort of marketing side of things. I think a lot of that expertise was developed along the way. So couldn't really leverage it at the time.
Yeah.
Back then it was very much about just, the product, the thing I wanted to make without really kind of having the full sensibility of, I guess, the market around it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like I say, obviously the fact that myself and the kind of early team, we had the pedigree of, working on some big studios, and, that's always great, but equally as a new team, the track record wasn't really there. So, that was another problem that we had to overcome. And usually the way you do that is by, developing a chunk of the product and kind of being able to demonstrate that, a lot of the risk has already been mitigated. But then it's a chicken and egg situation, because it's kind of like, okay, but how do I fund this early prototyping, so lots of bootstrapping and, issues around that. Yeah, so.
Okay. What still keeps you awake at night now as a business owner?
I think the thing that keeps most business owners awake at night, which is, making sure our business is sustainable. We, as a business owner, you're a bit of a patriarchal or matriarchal figure, and again, like I said, when I was an employee of another business, a lot of these things you don't realize. And certainly I have a newfound respect for people, managers and kind of, people in, leadership positions, where you think, but what do they do, right? They're just in meetings all day or whatever. And it's like, no, that's no, when you peek through, the other side, is like, no, there's a lot of stress involved around making sure people's jobs are safe and secure, and we have stability first and foremost, and ideally, growth in the long term. So
I was just intrigued.
That's
so
a good question.
So talk me through where is your business going in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so like I said, we took our time developing or releasing our first game fully. Like I said, because Rogue Sun. So I mentioned my previous business, Kinesthetic Games, was founded in 2011. Rogue Sun was founded in 2016. It's been a while. It took a while to get to the launch of our first game. Like I said earlier, now kind of doing the hard work of kind of marketing, PR, promotion, really diving into that side of things. The game is being reviewed really positively, which is excellent, and obviously kind of opening kind of new doors and conversations around I guess sequels, kind of doubling down on really capitalizing on this particular IP that we've developed with Tin Hearts. So that's kind of one area of exploration for us and growth. And then, yes, we're also kind of pitching new IP, new intellectual properties to publishers. We've got our own kind of little experiments internally for potential kind of smaller things that we maybe could self-publish. That's always kind of an area that I'm keen to, develop the business into more. And yeah, we just kind of, in some ways, we've been around for 7 years, I guess. But in some ways, given that we just launched our first full game, we're sort of at the beginning of our journey as well.
Will your next one now be quicker because of the learnings that you've had, or will that equally take that length of time?
It really depends. It really depends
Okay.
on the on the ambition again, I guess. I think, yeah, we definitely don't want to take as long next time, but I think also the reason we did kind of develop 2 games, the reason why I think 2 to 4 years is actually not a unreasonable time to develop a video game, which again, people don't realize that, they're massive endeavors in
Mm,
terms of the technical and artistic effort that goes behind
yeah,
making
yeah.
them. It's like creating a movie and an application, a software application at the same time. Again, for those games that do incorporate storytelling, I guess.
Mhm.
um so yes, we, like I said, because we launched the VR version first and then did this cross-platform version recently, it is kind of like we did 2 games. I think from a because the market moves, so the trends, the genres, it moves so fast, and it's very hard to go, if you go today, right, I'm going to make a product for that particular demographic and I'm going to launch it in 5 years. The targets might have moved by then.
Yeah, yeah.
So for that reason, and also for a reason of, there is kind of fatigue that creeps into, anything. If you do anything for too long, we definitely wouldn't want to take so long with the next one. I don't think it's a case of learn something new necessarily in terms of the, I guess, in terms of the craft of making games, like the technical know-how of building a product. I think people tell you releasing something into the market is a big experience thing that you have to have under your belt, have to try and get under your belt, and I couldn't agree more with that. I think those last 6 months of trying to get the damn thing into a box so that we can ship it out, yeah, were incredibly educational.
Okay.
So yeah, that's definitely, talking with the, I guess, external partners, platform holders, that we have to go through their QA processes, coordinating, like the first kind of 3 years or whatever, let's say, of just building the thing ourselves. Yes, there's kind of technical problems to overcome, but we're kind of going through the motions very much. The last year of shipping it, yeah, very educational, and I think there we learn many things that we can now easily apply to whatever we do next.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And make that a lot faster, I would imagine.
Yes, yeah, that we
Yeah.
can pretty much automate that process now, because yeah, we had to go through so many, every other day was like, oh, that's a thing. Right, okay, I guess we have to try and preempt that next time.
Okay.
So yeah, we now have a big document of all the
Yeah.
things that
These are
can.
all the things we need to change.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What is something you still want to achieve in the next 5 years?
um oh wow, good question. That's definitely one I wasn't prepared for. Yeah, I think I personally thrive in, um I guess, the culture of the team kind of being, being able to kind of look around in the studio. And I say look around in the completely metaphorical way, because we are currently fully remote, even though a lot of us are still in the sort of Guildford area. But yeah, kind of being able to look around and just see happy people, that are effectively fulfilled, working on things they want to be working on, and growing as individuals, and kind of helping their peers kind of grow as well, and all of us together kind of making something that we believe in. I think I I'm in the happy position to report that we very much achieved that with this project. So it's very much kind of a case of doubling down on that. Like I said, it was a moment of huge relief, because you never know when you get so close to the thing you're making. So you never know. Like for me, all I can see is the problems at the end of the process, or the issues. So you're thinking, is that what people are going to focus on? And it turned out, no, it's everything else. Actually, it's everything that makes the thing we made great, that people are focusing on. So yeah, just want to do more of that, to be honest. Just want to make more games, I guess, that people will leave a lasting impression. That, you know, I use the word memorable. I think I mentioned it earlier as well.
Yeah.
That's very much kind of, you know, what we try to do is something that will transcend the pure experience of, you know, just entertaining yourself for an hour or two. And like I say, you know, based on how people have been reviewing Tin Hearts, we've certainly achieved that. So yeah, would love to do more of that in terms of the products, and then do it while, you know, we're fostering a very positive culture that's conducive to self-growth.
Nice. Love that. If you had the opportunity to go back and speak to 18-year-old Kostas, what would you tell him? What advice would you give him?
Maybe do business night classes so you're prepared a bit more for what's about to come. Ooh, that's another one. I've, you know, you tend to get so lost on the day-to-day, and it's not until you have conversations like this where you go, I really should have thought more about these things. Yeah, no, I mean, but honestly, hindsight's 2020, and yes, you know, mistakes when you're on the other side are very easy to point out, but also when you think about the situations at the time that led to certain decisions, it's kind of hard to go, you could have done that better. Actually, well, with the information you had at the time, you know, it's hard to see how some decisions could have been different. You know, I mentioned how our first pitch didn't really manage to convert that to a product, but again, you know, given the information I had at the time, it was hard to kind of make better decisions. Yeah, other than, you know, like I said, you know, kind of having that know-how of the non-engineering things that come into running a business and marketing a product, as opposed to just making a product. So that would be one thing. Another thing would be, and this is a little bit more, I guess, philosophical, and not as I guess tangible, would be to try and find ways to kind of hold on to that naivety that we mentioned earlier, that sort of childish kind of drive and passion, and optimism, I guess, you know, all those things that we have as kind of younger individuals, because it's a hard thing. What happens when you take on the challenge of running a business, which is basically making something big out of nothing, right? That's kind of what you do, and sort of organizing people to facilitate the creation of that value. It's a big challenge. And then, you know, organizing people internally, coordinating with partners externally. So what happens is, you know, you need a lot of grit and perseverance and resolve. And those are great things that everyone talks about. You know, you need to have these things, yes. But one thing I've experienced is that to grow these things, the price or the cost you pay is, you know, you lose some of that sort of, whatever you want to call it, you know, like I said, naivety, childish kind of, you know, craziness, which are also really good things. So, you know, finding that balance of how you manage these resources, because you need both, by the way, right? It's not like you don't need the grit or the resilience. Yes, you need to grow in that way, but kind of doing these things so that they don't come, you know, you don't spend one resource to produce the other, but kind of maintain both resources as you go through this journey. Is a tricky balance to pull it off.
Knowing what you know now, would you start a business again?
Yeah, I think I was chatting about this with someone recently, and kind of saying, they say how, once you've tasted the freedom of, working for yourself, it's hard to go back. And I think that's very much true. I think it also kind of depends on the individual, because, my partner, for example, she will tell me, I don't understand how you do this. It doesn't make any sense to me, because like it's impossible to switch off. And yes, and but for some people kind of crave that.
Yeah.
So if you're that way inclined, in many ways it's kind of a one-way street, really. It's not even about the question you asked. It's kind of like, I don't think I have a choice. Kind of, do you know what I mean? Because certain people are wound kind of certain ways. I think also comes back to what I said right at the start about kind of like, being the type of person where you sort of see inefficiencies in processes, and you just kind of like, oh, and I think again that comes with the engineering background as well. Programming is very much about kind of optimizing things and feeling good about, cool, this is now, it all fits together, and with the smallest of inputs I get the biggest of outputs, kind of thing. So it's, engineers are very, very kind of inclined in a way where they think about everything in that sort of perspective. And not being able to control that process is like it's like, oh. So I think I would very much kind of always look to do what I do, I guess, given the choice.
Fair enough. Last question.
Sure.
Anyone watching this, either thinking about starting a business or has maybe just started, what would your top 2 tips be for them?
So talk to people. I said right at the start, the support that I got starting this journey, super grateful for it. The people supporting me back then still have 6-7 years in, still have very good relationships with. We will catch up frequently.
Nice.
Talk about kind of each other's I call it CEO therapy sessions or whatever, because it's the kind of stuff you can't really talk, like people, friends, family won't necessarily kind of get, whether it's the technical aspects of things. It's hard to find a combination of people where you can talk about the technical things that you're trying to navigate, but also they're going through the exact same things, right, that you are, because there's still people, and there might be kind of like managing complex problems and processes and teams, but they're still like, still get sad when something doesn't happen, or happy when something, so and it's really nice to be able to kind of be vulnerable, I guess, with other people who go through that same journey. So make sure you have that support structure and network around you as you go through this journey. I guess the other tip is try to make time in your day to look after all kinds of health, whether it's mental health or physical health.
Nice.
And try to make time, because yes, it is a sort of, it is pretty full on. As I don't think, I mentioned earlier how France says it's hard to switch off, and it will be very hard to switch off, because it's something that you deeply care about. It affects yourself, and if you're running a team, other people as well. So kind of comes with the territory. So I think you need to, in many ways, you need to be extra disciplined about looking after yourself, when it comes to both your mental and physical health.
I absolutely love that one. And actually, I see that sadly way too often, as you said, business owners, we can always be doing something. There's always something to do. And it's so easy to put everybody else in front of ourselves first, instead of making that time for whether it's physical or mental well-being to make sure that you are the strongest version you can be. Absolutely. You're the
100%.
first one to say that so far. So I absolutely love that one. Thank you. That's a really valid point.
It's important, yeah, and it's easily missed as well. So
It really is easily missed. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kostas, for
thank you.
your time, for sharing your thoughts and your story so far. There's some really great nuggets in there. I'm sure everyone watching this will take definitely a couple of things out of this. The link to connect up with Kostas is in the comments section below, so please go and do that. Let us know how much you've enjoyed this interview. Thank you very much for watching the Business Spotlight. Until next time.